Alright, wouldn't be much of a fly tying demonstration if we didn't cover off on some of the more traditional or most popular patterns. So I'm going to tie a slight variation, or my variation, of a pheasant tail nymph. So I'm starting off with a size 12 nymph hook, and I'm going to add to it some additional weight. So I'm going to use some lead under wrappings here, make maybe 12 turns or so, and break off that section. And I'm going to position this just to about the middle of the hook shank. One of the great things about the pheasant tail nymph is it has so many different variations, and a lot of the most popular patterns today of the modern flies are just variations of this pattern. So again, take liberties with its style and make it your own. So I've got the lead on now. I'm going to add my thread, and for this I'm going to use a 70 red, and the reason why I do is when I tie in the head it's going to act almost like a little hot spot, just something maybe a little different than what the fish have seen. And if you'll notice, I started a thread dam in front of the lead. I reached all the way back to catch the butt of it, and then threaded through the lead to make sure that it's not going anywhere. The pheasant tail that I'm going to use for this pattern is a golden color, and I'm going to take maybe 5 strands or so of this golden pheasant tail and make sure the tips are all aligned, and I'm going to tie it in about a hook shank in length. So I'll get that on with a couple of wraps. I'm not going to take it all the way back just yet. I'm going to add in my rib material, and the ribbing that I'm going to use for this variation is a copper ribbing, and I'm going to tie this just into the side again behind the lead. A couple of wraps to get it secure. Now for these bigger patterns you can get away with this next move. I'm going to pull all of this back, and I'm going to tie that in with everything else. Get everything good. With smaller patterns you won't get away with it. You'll need to tie it in by the tip section of the pheasant tail, but for a size 12 you'll be alright. Now I want to tie this in a cross section between the pheasant tail and the wire. So looking at the front of the fly, I'm going to tie in the pheasant tail first, and I'm going to do this in a counterclockwise wrap. This is going to want to unwind on you as you turn it, so with each turn I'm flattening it so that it doesn't ball up, and it gives me good coverage all the way through the body of the fly. I'm going to bring my pheasant tail fiber beyond my thread, and then I can take one big wrap fold it back on itself, and get that all pinched down. I can come back through and clean off those butt sections. Alright, now when I wrap my copper wire up, it's going to give me those cross sections against the pheasant tail. So I'll just take that up and tie it off. Now to this point it's been a pretty traditional pheasant tail pattern. The second half of my variation is almost how you tie a copper john. So I'm going to take first a piece of flash material, and so I'll take the tinsel and I'll just tie that in to the top of the fly here, making sure it's good and centered. Now, instead of using a piece of pheasant tail for the wing casing, I'm going to use mottled thin skin. And so I've cut a strip about 1/4 of an inch, and I'm going to tie that in to the top. So again, this is going to be very similar here the rest of the way out, like you'd tie in a copper john. So the next bit is the peacock curl for the thorax. I'm going to take 2 strands of peacock curl, and I'm going to trim the butt sections and tie that in. And now I can start to advance that peacock curl up through my thorax. And then tie that off. And now I'll start to make my wraps away from the eye, because I don't want to crowd the eye of the fly here. Now the leg material, again, instead of using the tips of pheasant tail, I'm going to use, this is a soft hackle hen, and I really like this for a tail material because it has a lot of movement. And so I've got that. I'm just going to clean off the underside of it. I'm going to peel back the tip, and I'm going to cut that off. And then what it does is when I push it all forward, you can see with the tip removed it has that void, and those are going to be my legs. So I'm going to measure it back against the fly and just hold it along either side and take some turns to secure it, and then I can start to adjust my legs. I'll come back through and clean this front part off. Now just tighten it down with a couple more. Alright, now I can pull my thin skin over, give one just loose, and then tie it back again away from the eye, and then my piece of flash material. Bring that back. Alright, now I can pull everything back make some turns, trim everything up. And then I can just build a slight thread head here and whip finish. Trim that off. Now I'll put a couple of drops of head cement on this. And I'll clean out the eye just to make sure none of that got in there. And you're all set. So that is a slight wrinkle on a classic pattern, the pheasant tail, and just with a couple of variations there, tying it with the mottled thin skin and the hen for legs.